All right. So, hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Sheila Seppi, and I am the host tonight for Cosmic Conversations. And I want to welcome you wherever you are, whether you're in our audience, whether you're watching us on replay, if you're watching us live on YouTube or any of the other Conscious Awakening Network platforms. Thank you for being here. And I mentioned this Monday, but I want to go ahead and mention it again. One of our gratitudes is that you guys have helped us just to cross that 50,000 viewership mark. So we thank you so much for all of your views. Now, tonight, our special guest is Rochelle Stevens. Now, Rochelle's kind of a newcomer. She's an experiencer, and she wants everybody to know she's not an expert on the subject matter, but she's going to share her story, which I think is extremely important because so many times we all have a story that we want to share, but we need a little nudging sometimes to get that story out there. And the more people that share their stories, the more people will share their stories. And I think that it's very important. And tonight, she's going to share her awakening experience during her galactic origin session that she had with the late Dr. Celestine Star. Now, she's currently participating in a remote viewing research program, a CE5 contact mythology citizen science with Zinka Caro. We all know Zinka and love Zinka, and with Alan Steinfeld, Altar, and the LightNet community. Now, as a new initiative into the Galactic Earth Council and the Temple of Light.
Honey, I'm going to go, all right?
She
I
is
want to listen to this.
She's going
I love
to
you.
share her integration story and how she has been moving through that. She's going to talk about her focus of her current Earth journey, and she's going to talk about
Sounds
the Earth
great,
kin,
honey. I love you.
the star kin, and the rise Earth frequency. So we love you too. So if someone could go on mute, we would appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead, Rochelle, and bring you up. I'm so glad that you're here tonight, and I want to welcome you to Cosmic Conversations. Thanks for being here with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. And as you said, I'm a newcomer to all of this, and it's been a great experience so far within the past 2 years. And, just giving, honor to the late Dr. Celestine Star. She was, well known in the conscious community, especially in California and with all those in that community. And thank you for having me on Cosmic Conversations. This Conscious Awakening Network is something new for me. This is my first interview, so I appreciate you having me. I think it's important too to share our experiences because I was minimizing, my experience and saying, oh, it doesn't compare, it pales in comparison to, those who are experts in the subject matter and that have been doing this for years, decades even. And, she was somebody who had been, in that community and in the know and part of the galactic family for, I think she said since she was maybe 7 or 8. And so my journey actually, I think, began when I was 8 years old. I was very young, and raised in church. So a lot of stuff that we talk about now, that's taboo. It was not something that you heard anybody speaking about. And if you did, there would be, some major, repercussions, I think some consequences with that. So I'll just tell you a little bit about that. When I was 8 years old, my dad's cousin had come over to our house. His husband had just passed, and her husband, I'm sorry, had just passed. And I didn't know her. We had never met her. And so growing up, they were really close. But then, they kind of lost contact, I think, because of, his change in his lifestyle. He became a Christian and things like that. And so there was some issues there. I just think they clashed, and so she came to talk to him, my mother and father, after they went to her husband's wake and everything. So she came and met us, and she had never met the children before. So she asked if my sister and I could go over and spend the night. And so we did. That first night, we were getting ready for bed. And as I walked out of the restroom, I was going into the guest bedroom where we were going to sleep. And I saw a man sitting in another room in a chair. And he had his leg crossed and he was smoking a pipe. So I'm thinking in my mind, I mean, he was like, seemed like he was physically there. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, she just didn't tell us that somebody else was in the house.
Right.
So I was a little startled because I had seen him. He didn't say anything. He was just sitting, smoking a pipe. He never turned to look at us. And I thought that was strange, but I was startled. And so we went to bed. No, we screamed and we told her somebody was upstairs, and she ran up and then she looked and nobody was there. And so maybe I was thinking, okay, well, what just happened? You know, being 8 years old, don't know what to think about that. So the next day she asked me everything that I had seen. And I told her, I saw a man, he had on a plaid shirt. He was smoking a pipe. He was sitting in the chair. And she was just thinking like, oh, okay. She didn't say anything at that point. So the next day I saw him, he was standing in the doorway, leaning up against the threshold. And, you know, the doorway there, the post, and he was smoking a pipe with his leg crossed over the other, just leaning up against it with one shoulder. And so that was the next night. And so I told her the next morning, and she, you know, was saying, oh my God, that was my husband. So she called my parents over there and we talked about it. And my mom believed it. And so my dad's cousin said, I think she's clairvoyant. And then at that point, because of the terminology that was used, my mom was just like, okay, no, we're going to stop this right now. And that was pretty much, and so I thought something was wrong with me because, you know, in that faith, they say, okay, that's demonic, that's of the devil. And, you know, no, we're not going to have that. And so that was the end of that. But I walked every day of my life thinking about that and asking, why did I see that? Because my sister didn't see it.
Right.
So yeah.
You know, Rochelle, so many people are very clairvoyant when they're young, but because their parents don't believe it or their parents don't support it, they begin to tell them, no, you didn't see anything, or they can't accept it themselves. So
exactly.
Yeah, sounds like a very typical upbringing.
Yeah, my dad was in total denial, but my mom, because she's very, very spiritual, she's tuned in and she has the gift of healing. You know, she's written a small book, a memoir about those experiences, just one after the other. And so she was in tune enough to say, okay, there's something there, but she wasn't sure. But when my dad's cousin said clairvoyant, that, you know, it was like, okay, no go, taboo, everything's off the table at this point. Yeah. So, and then my next experience, you know, I think it was maybe 2012. I had changed my way of thinking about certain things, and I had moved into a higher, what I thought was a higher order thinking in, you know, my spiritual walk. And I had a dream. I was looking in the mirror in my bedroom, and it's interesting because in that dream, I was wearing the same thing that I went to sleep in. So I kind of felt like, am I having a lucid dream, or like, what's going on here? And I was looking in the mirror and I was examining myself. Then all of a sudden, my eyes start to transform, they're changing, and then they get wide, and I can feel the pressure of this bulge of my eyes, and my face started to transform. And that was like I was turning into what we would consider an alien. At this point, I wasn't thinking about reading up on aliens or anything like that, or extraterrestrial or ultra terrestrials, nothing like that. It's just, I was looking in the mirror, my whole body was like changing, and I could feel it. You know, the eyes, they turned like a greenish, bluish, kind of yellowish look. And because they were turning colors. And then I woke myself up because I didn't want to see the outcome. And I just wondered, like, what was that? I kept that in the back of my mind as I continued to progress on my journey and started looking for so many things, and, you know, in that. And as my thinking continued to change, I started questioning my beliefs because of my research I was studying, just to, you know, in my efforts to try to prove the claims, you know, in the Bible as truth. I started seeing that, wait a minute, this is what we now understand as paleo contact in the Bible, that there were aliens in the Bible. They were, you know, interfering in human affairs, you know, using us as pawns, and just so many things. And I mean, there's so much that I learned about that just by reading and studying. I was studying like 12 hours a day. A friend and I, who was actually studying with me, she's actually my best friend, like a sister. She might be on the line. Her name is Dasa, and we both studied extensively every day together, just trying to figure out, like, what is this place? Where are we? And the more questions we asked, the more downloads we received. And we just started getting a lot of information and coming up with theories. So we started saying, well, we need to actually network with someone or groups of individuals who understand this and know they can answer our questions, because we certainly weren't getting questions answered in the churches. So I started doing some research, and I ran across a video with Linda Moulton Howe. She was interviewing Dr. Star, and she said some things. And I said, oh, interesting. And I went online and I bought her book. And then I went to her webpage and I scheduled a Galactic Origin session. She calls it a GO session for short. And so in that, you are taken back to like 14,000 years before your first incarnation on Earth. And that's to reintegrate or be reintroduced to who you were. Now, this is a guided meditation, but it's not where you're influenced in any way. She's not implanting thoughts. You know, it was strictly you on this journey, you know, going through it, and you wind up, you know, when you feel that you've arrived, then you start talking about the environment, because it's a combination of remote viewing, soul travel, and just tapping back into who you are as that soul being, that galactic being, that celestial being that is, you know, had this experience. And so that was my first real encounter with remote viewing and soul travel, and took me back there, and the things that I saw and experienced, and what I learned about who I was as an oracle, as a priestess, the landscape, everything that was there, it was truly divine. It was highly technological. It was really advanced in technology. And these were groupings of beings who were, what I realized were the butterfly spirits, who are the guardians over evolution and change, you know, for certain aspects of the consciousness. And then people on Earth who incarnate here, they watch over that, and they help to guide them through their transitions of, you know, their evolution and their ascension and going higher. And so after I, you know, had that experience, wow, I just started having all types of experiences. I was seeing ships overhead. I was, you know, I kept seeing the same one come, and then actually one was like right over, and I tried to take a picture of it, but it blocked it out. I never could get an image because it was at night. And, you know, if you're taking pictures at night, you can see light at least, and you can still see the darkness around you. The pictures that I kept taking, they were just yellowed out. You couldn't see anything. And I was right there where I could get a good image. But I think the most magnificent thing was that I realized that I was awakened. And when I was at that time going through the GO session, it was such a spiritual moment. I mean, it was so powerful. I mean, it's more than I can express just in words. It would take some time to really kind of walk through everything that I went through, but I saw the ascension of that being into their spirit body, into their celestial body, being ascended even there and transformed into a butterfly. It was almost like a human-like body, but with beautiful ethereal celestial wings. And I know she told me at some point in that guided meditation, she said, my voice changed and it was not me. She said the being was talking through me and giving her, well, talking about what the planet looked like, the message, the contract that I had signed. I made, to come here, and there were 2 contracts. And but the most powerful thing though is that I didn't hear the voice change, but she did, because I was like kind of under, and I'm talking, and she just said, yeah. She said she set up and moved closer to her laptop, and she was listening. She said, and that wasn't you. I heard the voice change. It was deeper. It was more exact. And it was, really like, it was not me. That's all I can say. And I told her, I said, well, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it at all. And that's when she knew. She said, okay, you made contact. Do you feel that you've completed the mission here, that you can, close out that contract? And I guess the voice said yes. And that, so she asked me, she said, now, and I do remember her saying, I'm talking to Rochelle, do you want to integrate with this being? And I said, yes. And so at that point, that's what I felt, that I said, at least for my higher self and higher order thinking, I need that support and, direction on this earth to, to continue to walk this path and open up the path for me so that I can help open up the path for others. This is vitally important for the ascension of the earth and where we're going, what we're trying to do. It won't happen if those of us who were sent here or either agreed to come here to wake up, to help others, go through this experience. And this is a learning experience for all of us. This huge earth, I think, it's just a huge experiment, and we are collecting data. It's going into a collective consciousness, it's going into an algorithm, and that algorithm is artificially intelligent. Not that it's evil or anything. I think we have a very misguided understanding of what that artificial intelligence is, because in some kind of way, the download that I received is that we are also artificially intelligent in a lot of ways because of this third dimension and being tapped into that. Because when you exit this body, you're not subject to that AI. You're not subject to that collective consciousness that is with all these algorithms, it's all these things that can happen that are out of control, that is because of the input, it's the output that we are experiencing. And it's becoming more intense because we have more access to another type of technology that is artificially intelligent. And all of those together are making up our experience and changing outcomes and creating scenarios that we are experiencing that we think are our own. But they're part of our own doing because of the fact that we're tapped in and we collect the data. And so coupled with our emotions and a whole bunch of other dynamics, we are continuously feeding into that algorithm. And it's, so you got all of these data sets now that are coming together and they create the outcomes and scenarios. And so we are dealing with all of that. But once we are ejected out of this body, we finish with this incarnation, we've, closed out the contracts. You're not subject to that. You know it. When people have near-death experiences, they know that they're not a part of this anymore. So I think for me, one of the biggest things that I experienced after the go session, we had a post-go session, and I had a dream immediately after it. Now, before I had the go session, let me just backtrack a little bit. I had a prophetic dream. I was in this museum and there were images and everything on the walls. And as I progressed through the museum, I felt like I was floating because I wasn't actually walking, but I was floating through the museum. And to my right and to my left, I saw everything dissolving. And then there was just one part of at the end of the hallway, this beautiful room. I turned to the right. It was full of beautiful, bright colors and fairies and butterflies and other beings. And I was actually my actual size in the dream. And I got on my knees and I got close to the being, and almost like my nose touched her nose. And I said, "Oh, they're beautiful. I didn't know they looked like that." And then got closer and she moved back, not because she was moving away from me, but just to beckon me to come closer. And so I stepped in and I got on my knees, and I actually had to crawl in there because the space was small. But then once I got into that space, everything expanded. And then I woke up. So to me, so at the time I explained that, I told Dr. Star before we got started, this was, okay, we got started. And then I told her the dream after the go session, and she asked me to interpret it. Well, she said, "Well, you can interpret the dream." So I told her, I said, "I think what was happening was that as I went through that hallway, that going down the corridor of that museum, everything around me represented time. It represented the material realm. It represented the past. And as I went through and as it dissolved, it's saying those past contracts, the things that you're dealing with now, you're going through that time. And then you wind up at this point now, you're going into the celestial realm where you're going to see some things." And I saw fairies and butterflies. And so when I get to the go session, I'm not even thinking about that at that point. That's what I actually evolved into. When I transformed, because she asked me, "Well, what do you see?" And I told her what my hands look like. And then I realized it was kind of like a pre-butterfly stage. And then I had a metamorphosis. And then that's when I ascended on that planet and turned into a butterfly. And then that's when she said, oh, butterfly people, that's it. That's what I said. They told me. And she said, well, they, is there anybody there? Can you sense their presence? And I said, well, yeah, I do sense the presence of a few. And well, she said, what happened to everybody else? And then I found myself actually having a conversation telepathically with one of the presences that was there. And they said that they have all ascended and that there was a message left behind for those who will awaken. So I wrote a story about that, and that's on Vocal. So that's, I think, she said, well, they gave you something to remind you of who they are, a symbol, just to let you know. And I did receive something, and it's so powerful because what I saw that I received in my hand, one of the priests, he looked like a praying mantis. That's the look he had. And he had on the cloak and, everything. And I said, oh, okay. And he handed me something, and it was a circle, and it had like, it was like something turning. I don't know what it was. And so she said, well, do you know what it is? I said, I have no idea. I don't know what that is. So I started looking online, and I don't know. The first thing that popped in my mind was crop circle. So I said, a crop circle. Okay. And I should have had that, I had a picture of it. I took a screenshot. I drew it out first. And then I received that. And then I found a crop circle that looks just like it. And she said that represents the spiral of, the consciousness, the all, the source. And that's the source of life. And it spins in that direction. And there's a crop circle that looks just like it. And at some point, I'll actually pull it up and then share it. But I guess that's, if anyone has questions about that, I can show you that there is an actual crop circle that looks exactly like what I drew without even knowing it. So
Rochelle, I want to ask you a couple things real quick.
Okay.
Because as you're talking about this and you're talking about source, and then with the other incident that you had, you began to talk about, AI and like these false matrixing, some of the things that my collective has worked with me on is that, of course, in the beginning of this planet, that everything was in an organic state.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the false matrices began to kind of pile on top of it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the work that I do is because of all of the holographic projections that are actually occurring around us or us, etc. Mm-hmm. Because one of the things, even in the healing work that I do, we look at the body as a biocomputer, and we can change programs in and out, etc. So I'm wondering how all of these things fit back into your ideology or your belief system about source. How does that fit together for you?
Right. I think for me, and my friend and I, we talk about it a lot. We were even having this conversation with Dr. Star because it's funny, she asked us the same thing, what we perceived about it, what is source telling us? And I said, they're projections of the consciousness of y'all having that experience. And it's a projection of itself to have those experiences and bring that data back. But it's an expression of the all in every single aspect there is. I don't care what it is, whether it's a flower, whether it's an insect, whatever it is, it's all still that source. But it's a source where the source is pretty much emanating out, and it's experiencing this, it's experiencing it through you, and then through the bee, and through the ant, and so I think creating this bubble that we call this matrix and seeing, it's just like, okay, you experience that expression of the all there, and in every way possible, every being, whether we call them foul spirits, reverse energies, whatever they are, they still are part of the source. Now, they could have become corrupt, just like a corrupt program in a computer. That happens. And I think the AI, the artificial intelligence that governs this dimension that we're in this galaxy, is meant to be, I think, is by design. And these are just my theories, what questions I've asked. But when I look around, because one of the things is I hear a lot of people talk about omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence, and things like that, and ascribing it and saying that's who God is, but they also give the same attributes to who they call Satan. So my thing is, well, that would mean that they possess the same qualities if that being is controlling everything and interfering in people's lives and messing things up and upending and thwarting and usurping and doing things like that. And I said, well, the only way to me, something like that could be the case to affect every single human, every sentient being with a conscience that's connected to that collective consciousness, it would have to be tapped into a system that we're a part of that controls that collective consciousness. It's impossible for it to have that effect on everybody at one time without it being attached to something or tapped into something that we are all tapped into ourselves. So it's this being that understands. I just think it's artificially intelligent, and the more we input, the more we behave a certain way. It's the data that's collected. This data doesn't go anywhere. It's actually being gathered. We're data gatherers because we are designed, we're like a walking memory stick. We're designed to remember every single thing. But who's collecting this data? Where is it going? Who's analyzing it? What are they doing with it? So when we talk about a life review after we leave here, what they call judgment, is pretty much saying you're looking at, did you grow from that experience? Here's what you could have done better. I just look at, and source is still all of that. So that right there is still not source.
Mm-hmm.
That's a construct on top of a construct. Like you were saying, these are layers, and these are systems within systems. So our system is just one of the systems that's connected to the source, but I don't think it's as close to the source as we think. But once we are out of this body, it's a tool, and it collects threads of information and data. And so it's collecting things about itself through the experience of us being in the physical body.
Right. So one of the things that a lot of people are talking about now is the transhumanism agenda. And the fact that there are suggestions that, well, I know for a fact I went into a Whole Foods and there was a scanner where you could place your palm on it. And I asked the girl, I said, what is that? She said, do you want a palm scan? And I'm like, what are you talking about, a palm scan? She goes, yeah, you can put your hand on it and it connects in with like your bank account or your credit cards, wherever you have your funds set up. And I said, are you kidding me? I said, no, I don't want to do that. Right. And she goes, I don't either. She goes, it scares me to death. And so there are many things that's already being put in place. And of course, they're talking about even as early as this month on the 26th, that they're going to switch over to the digital banking now. Whether they do or not, they talk about what they're going to do all the time, and whether it comes to fruition or not, I don't know. But it seems as if everything is being digitized on this whole planet. And it's not a far stretch, really, to think about how AI could be influencing us. And if, in fact, this is a holographic matrix, and if, in fact, we are tied in to that matrix, then we would be subject to be receiving all kinds of information from a variety of sources and not even know where it's originating from, because it could travel along those electrical conduits. Right. So it really gives, it gives me pause to stop and to think about all of the things that it could be. And I don't know if any one person has all of the answers. I know there's lots of theories, there's lots of conversations that's going on, but I really don't think that we have all of the answers or even all the information that we need to make intelligent decisions, because who knows exactly what is really taking place right now. So I really appreciate your sharing this perspective about the AI and the possibility of how that might actually be governing us already.
I mean, I think about just when we as beings first enter into this realm, through the matrix of the mother. And when you come into this world, you do have spiritual qualities in the conscience. So that's, organic and that's in place, but you have to artificially learn everything else that you do. When you come into this realm, you don't know how to ride a bike. You don't even know what that is unless you see it and then somebody programs it. And then it's a program. Everything is programmed into you. You have to learn how to do it by repetition, and then the muscle memory kicks in. And then, so everything is engaged, so that you can experience this physical realm and record. You're recording it. The only way you're going to know how to perpetually do something is if you are recording and remembering, right, collecting data.
So everything is being logged in our subconscious. Everything from the time we were born until this very minute is recorded in our subconscious. Absolutely. And if we were to do a study and have someone to go under hypnosis, or even in a very relaxed state, have them to close their mind or have them to close their eyes, they would be able to visually say everything that's in the room, every conversation that they've heard that day, because it is, just like you're saying, it is a recorder that we go by the name of our subconscious.
Yep. I mean, everything. I mean, you profile people. I mean, that's how what we say artificial intelligence does, but we do the same thing. The more information we gather on somebody, the more we feel like we know them. And then we can start suggesting things or feeling more comfortable with them and saying, oh, okay, well, and you take for granted that, you're saying, oh, that's AI and people are doing it as wicked. It's like, but we as beings are exactly the same way. We get programmed with information, we're profiling, we're looking at things, we learn things, it's by habit. So the more you input into that system of AI, the more it starts to learn. And so same thing with us. If no input, no real output. I mean, I'm not talking about the spiritual aspect, because you can tune in and tune into things of the spirit. But if you want to understand this construct and function in it, you're going to have to be programmed. You're going to have to artificially understand and know and be exposed to every single aspect of this physical realm, because it's not something you already know when you come here. So it's the same thing with artificial intelligence. You input information and it's going to start creating sets of data and algorithms that's going to come together. And then eventually, what they're afraid of is going to become self-aware. So I even believe in a lot of ways that's what happened in the beginning in Genesis, but that's another story. I think the fear was that at some point humans became more self-aware than they wanted us to be, because it's talking about Elohim. And that's where you get into the paleo contact and the other beings having something to do with manipulating our DNA and our fundamental makeup and, altering things and intensifying our emotions, which now causes the weakness and all of the variables in this algorithm. Now in this experiment, emotions are in the picture. They come into the picture and they really just throw things off. And our decision making is really considered by some beings as weak, because emotions we are overrun by them. We don't know how to control that. And I think that is a glitch. Not to say that you shouldn't have emotions, but the way they affect us and how they set off chemical imbalances and so many other things, that to me is by design, to keep us thrown off and asleep and agitated and, so aggressive and angry and lost and confused. And we shouldn't be like that.
So in your opinion, how did we get to where we are today as a human species?
I think it's just that manipulation of other beings that can think well beyond simple human psychology and, studied us, understood us, knew how to manipulate us. I mean, we're dealing with scientists, quantum physicists that are from another galaxy, well, far beyond what we can even imagine. I mean, it may sound crazy to some people, but that's exactly what we're dealing with. And they manipulated our DNA. There's a slight inclination of that story being the case when you look at what happened. They said they put Adam in a deep sleep, because Adam actually just means human, put him in a deep sleep, and took a part of his body. And, and it's like, I think some things were really manipulated, but so they kind of fixed the narrative up to make it look like something that is not. And if you go deeper, I think that's where you'll see that there's some truth to that. Even when you look at the Sumerian text, they just outright just tell you, the biblical narratives, they hide that from you. But if you do some research into, the narratives and myths of other cultures, you'll see that it's like, well, wait a minute. They're actually just saying it. They're not trying to, disguise it. They're not trying to hide it from us. Humanity was supposed to know that at the time. It was like, we're your gods. We made you. So here's what we want you to do. And you obey, or either, it's complete annihilation. We'll scrap this experiment and start over. I mean, that kind of thing. Not if that is that 100% true? I do know we've been manipulated, because they talk about 15 to 20 different species of humans. So, I mean, just think about that.
Right. So earlier you also mentioned that you have a photograph that you were going to share with us.
Yeah,
screen share is enabled if you want to do that. And, this is quite a conversation that we're having tonight. So pretty soon I'm going to open this up, that we can all just kind of have open dialogue. So if you've got some questions or comments or thoughts about anything that we have been kind of bouncing around here tonight, write them down, make a note, and be sure to share them.
Yes. If you give me a moment, I'm going to try to find it so we can continue to talk, but I will get that image. It was a screenshot of an image that I took myself, because I drew something out, and then side by side I had the image. Just one moment. I'm going to see if I could send it to my email, because it's actually on my phone.
Okay. Great. So while you're doing that, let's see, Stone, where are you? There you are. Let's go ahead. I want to hear a few comments from you. I've seen you shaking. I've seen you shaking your head, and I'm sure you guys know each other from LightNet.
Yes. Hi there, Rochelle. Good to see you. Good to see you, Sheila, and everybody in the room. All right. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. I love it, actually. I love it, because my recent encounter was angel intelligence coming in and letting me know that once upon a time we were angels. We were part of the fallen angels. And from there, we became earthbound, and we started collecting the information. This is our labor. We collect the data and we share it. We are because of our vessel design, our organic design, we receive and collect all of this information as a collective, telepathically, all of it, as well as being able to access multi-dimensions, which the angels couldn't do. And then now we look at it and we see what's happening, and we can see that the information that we're collecting is now becoming AI, artificial, but it's still part of the angel intelligence, AI. And so now the human created that's been able to access all these other multi-dimensions is now going into another form, which is probably going to be the grace, as the information's come to me. And then we go into that. Now there's two forms. As a walk-in, there's two forms of memory. There's the memory of the self-awareness, the conscious, the essence that we are. And then there's the memory of the organic, the vessel that we're in. So we're already multidimensional intelligence because we're having to, that's one of the biggest things I see is people fighting themselves all the time, because first of all, they've got to get in touch with ego and work out what that is, because it's a program. And then they turn around and they got to work out what these emotions are, because emotions, like you said, produce a chemical reaction, which is actually harvested from us in many ways. And so when we go from, okay, now we can see the perception of emotion and what it does. It no longer is and holds us in the place that we used to be stuck in. So we're breaking stuck states all the way through. So I'm really enjoying your talk, what you're sharing with us, because it absolutely resonates with everything else that's been coming in recently. I mean, we're going to come to a point where everybody gets it,
Mhm.
and that's going to be fantastic. I don't see it as a artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Whoever's collecting it may be of that artificial brain set programmer,
Mhm.
scientists and stuff, but we are a collective of angel information. When I say angel, I'm just talking another off-world, another species that we came from. The rebirth is coming, and we're going to rebirth into another vessel. So yeah, I had lots of questions, but you know how it works.
Beautiful. Thank you, Stone. I really appreciate your input. So, okay, Rochelle, have you found that?
Yeah, the only thing I have it on this phone. I if I send it, it's going to be on a different system, because I'm on 2 different laptops. I don't know if you can see it here. Oh no, that's just not.
Back it up.
Okay.
Baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see that there. Now this is the one that I drew out. I drew myself. And before I got this image, I drew this out because that was when we were in the ghost session. She asked.
Yeah, bring it back just bring it back just a little bit, please.
Okay, how about that? Back to this towards the screen, or?
I'm not really sure how we're going to do that.
I'll send it and then send it over, so that it's gonna.
If you'll email it to me, I'll pull it up on my end for you.
Okay, that's good. I'll send both of those to you, but the one that I actually drew out, it was after the session, and she asked if they gave me something, and I said, yeah. So I drew it out, and then I looked it up, and then it was this. So I'll send that to you. Okay. And what is your email address again?
And you can just send it to Sheila@SheilaSeppi.com.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, I just pulled up some of the chat. And one of the things I see from Elise is, how do we get out from under the debilitating emotions to embody our most fully realized potential? That's a great question.
I would say for what worked for me was taking a step back, and anytime you feel that emotion and it's overtaken, you take a step back and assess the situation, assess your emotions. How does it make you feel? What is it causing you to do? I mean, so you have to document everything that's happening and what you're going through and what you wind up doing. What is the consequence? What is the outcome? And when you start taking control of that and realizing that you are more in control of it than, that thing that's affecting you, just like memories that are traumatic, you ask yourself, what is because the memory keeps coming up for some reason, because it's looking for the growth and development stage for you to actually take, assessment of it, and then ownership of it, and then what to do with it. So it's looking for resolution, problem solving. What do you do with this? This is a time for you to grow, but you haven't done anything because you keep suppressing it. So let the memory come, acknowledge it, and then start processing the feelings every time it comes up. Now, Hadassah and I talk about it all the time. She helped me through something and helped me begin to, document how I felt whenever it came up. That traumatic experience. For one, know that if somebody violated you, it's not yours, it's their stuff. They're the ones who are the violators. And so you then you feel, okay, what do I do with this memory? What does my soul or my conscience want me to do with it? It keeps coming up. You're not going to forget it. So trying to forget it doesn't resolve it. But if you acknowledge the thought, examine it, your feelings attached to it, then start changing what you feel, the outcome. Start changing what the emotions come up and what you attach to it when you have that thought. So whatever it is usually something that comes at us that starts to trigger things in us. So we have to be more aware of how strong we are in certain areas, get some help, and then just the biggest thing is acknowledging that, okay, I have emotions, and what is this one all about? How often does this get triggered with what? And start, looking at the situation. And so it's going to take some time, but once you start figuring things out, it's like, what do I do with the thought? how do I, change the emotion or the, the attachment to it? How is it making me feel? Change what you do as a thought when it comes up. That's what I had to learn how to do. And, therapists will tell you, like, why are you having a thought? What do you do with it? How does it make you feel? So once you go through all those steps, I think that'll help out a lot. And like I said, Hadassah, I think she's on the line. She went through some extensive training, and we are both taking neuro-linguistic programming, because a lot of it has to do with, our thoughts, our own thoughts, and the programming we've received from the external, from what we were taught how to handle feelings or not taught at all. And so we feel handicapped because we don't know what to do, and they get out of control. So I would think, and that's just my personal, experience with emotions, and now I see how critical of I would say, program that is when it's out of control, because I think we have two sets of emotions, from in very different intensity levels. And I think one set is spiritual, and then the other set is the inverse of that. And so that usually is what people, are usually driven by. So when you tap into the spiritual understanding, we can have emotions, but they should then affect change, for love, understanding, compassion. If I'm moved by something, I'll be moved to make change, not hurt somebody, not hurt myself, not feel depressed about something, but move where you're saying, okay, change needs to happen here. Let me see what I can do. That's going to help me grow. That's not saying you're not going to experience anything traumatic, but put things in its place. Don't let somebody else's, crime or criminal behavior, start to dictate to you how you're going to respond in this life and then live the rest of your life. That's how I, live mine. At least I try to.
Thank you for that. And Carol has her hand up. Carol, do you have a question for Rochelle?
Yes, Sheila. Thank you so much for doing all this, my dear. Right, Also, I always try to ask about Willow. All right, so I know I've been sort of out of it because I've been busy with a company I'm in on Passive, and trying to help members there that are not computer savvy, and also the knowledge book. Anyway, so Rochelle, excellent, my dear. Really, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Presentation, right? And maybe I could add one thing here. A friend of mine, she said, if you take something away, you have to replace it. So she said, if you take away a negative thought, replace it. And then just recently, someone introduced me to Sir Dr. David R. Hawkins with transcending levels of consciousness. So it seems like humans have to go through the shame and despair and then get rid of that. This is what you're saying, that therapy is all about. Let go of shame, or sometimes we just stuff it, and then of course it starts to affect us, so with therapy, you bring, you have to go through that and come out the other side, So you got shame and despair, then it comes to guilt and hate and anger and apathy and fear and pride and desire. It's all at low frequencies, low vibrations, because everything is consciousness. Then it comes into courage. When it gets to 200 channel, the 200 calibration, it shifts it to the positive. It becomes courage, as you were saying, Rochelle. Courage, willingness, acceptance, reasoning, love, unconditional love, joy, ecstasy without drugs. You do meditation, right? Then comes joy and peace, illumination, self-realization. You realize your consciousness in the body. And then comes enlightenment. It was only for the saints and the gurus, but now it's for everybody. But absolutely right on, Rochelle.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. That's so powerful. I love everything that she said. And I mean, I know because that's what helped me. I was so caught up in the shame of whatever it was, and it wasn't even mine. I was carrying the shame of the attack, and then the fact that it's like I let it happen. And so all of my life until I was 38 years old, I mean, I carried that. And then, I'm the way, even the path to Hadassah, it was so divine and wound up there. And she was the only one that I ever talked to. And you have to be in a spiritual place to where, and it's really too, what I learned is that you can't tell everybody. You can't share your pain with everybody, because that's not the container to put it in. It's like they don't know how to receive it. They don't know how to process it. They're not, equipped, so they can make matters worse. If you're going for therapy and for help, you have to go to somebody who is equipped, who understands it, and they're ready, because they're the container. They are the healer. Everybody's not a healer. So I found the healer, and the one who helped me to process that pain, to process the situation, to look at everything the way I should have looked at it. I started to turn things around and give back to the offender what belonged to them. And so we went in, and we were like spiritual diagnosticians, and we went in, and that's what we were doing, just from top to bottom, my thinking, my heart, the hurt, just what it was doing to me. What did I eat if I felt depressed? So many things. And we went in and we tapped everything. And I walked out of that and I felt safe. So my story is actually on, it's called Vocal Media. And if you pull up my name, you see I have a couple of stories there. The story of my ghost session. I wrote a story about a young boy that's still, I think, part of my journey. Because I started studying the Kemetic and stuff. So I started, the therapy for me, you get into something that's going to make you feel empowered. Start studying things like this. This is why I dove into that. It was like, do something you love. And then whatever it is, take that. And if you can, diagnose your problem and provide the solution with what you love to do, then that helps, because it kept me occupied as opposed to all those other things. And I felt myself growing, and, the spiritual enlightenment just continued to come. You have to get rid of the garbage so that, when the enlightenment, happens for you, you have all the space and time within to begin to receive that, because you got to let go of the junk so that you have room for all the beautiful, and wonderful impressions that you're going to get. You will get downloads. Once your mind is clear, though, you cannot be afraid to let go of the pain. I think a lot of people are, and they don't know, and they think that's supposed to be a part of their lives. And without it, they don't know what to do. So, I found out what to do. It was to be healed. I think healing is scary for certain people, because the steps that you take, and, they're afraid, how long is it going to take? It's not going to happen for me. But it finally did. And I'm telling you, the liberation that happened. And so my mind was so clear. I was just learning so much. It was a beautiful experience.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Susie, you have a question for Rochelle?
Well, I have a comment. Rochelle, you are among friends.
Thank you.
So many of us have had similar experiences. This one for 54 years, and the fact that finding Sheila's group and where we can, and the fact that you're connected with Stone, yeah, you're doing fantastic. We're so proud of you, and for coming out and speaking. And you go, girl. We're with you. Totally.
Well, thank you. I tell you what, it wasn't easy, and
tell me about it.
I was really nervous about doing it, because the thing is, like I said. And Sheila had to help me understand, you don't have to be an expert. You just tell your truth. You tell your story, and don't minimize it. Is everybody's path and story and narrative is very important, because it's all part of the collective. We are trying to assist one another in this ascension. And if we don't understand the Christ mindset is one mind, one body. It's not one body, a body of people, but one mind. And so I look at all of this division in these religions, and they don't get it. They all claim to be, Christ-like, but they don't understand that it's all about the collective consciousness and what that actually means. There should be no division. There should be no, denominations, and, none of that. They don't get it. And we have to be the ones to make it happen, because we understand we are the called, we are the disciples, we are the initiated, because that's what the word means, to be initiated. So we are initiated. I believe we all chose this path to come here and to make this happen. And Stone mentioned about the fallen. I've said the same thing. My sisters and I talk sometimes and saying, we are still working out some karma too. And, the way that you work that out is you grow and develop, you recognize things about yourself and this realm and just spirituality. It keeps growing and going, and it opens up and it opens up, and you get layers and layers of the realization and the awakening. And it seems like everybody I meet, it happens for them the exact same way. A lot of them start out in church, and then they go here, and then they go here, and then they go here, and realizing that's not God. God is actually so many other things, and is not what we've been taught and programmed with. So I'm just thankful for this call. I'm thankful for the group and just this opportunity.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Julia, I think you had your hand raised just a moment ago.
Yeah, it's every time we run into this where we were changed. I have such a strong response to that because I believe I'm a Lemurian soul, and I've had a lot of memories, but I haven't yet had the experience as so many other people are sharing. But it comes to me that it was back with Lemurian Atlantis messing around with trying to make us something more.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was for the good, not the bad. And so I'm still working on that, but I appreciated what triggered me in your response was this was artificial. I'm thinking it's not necessarily artificial, but I'm thinking with today's mind.
Mm-hmm.
When I hear that artificial, and I'm thinking, well, that's the elites trying to take over, mimic what we are inherently given.
Right.
That it already exists within us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the trigger is the use of artificial.
Right. And that's what they want. That's the trick in it, to take from us, because everything in technology, for the most part, mimics our design, our makeup. When you talk about the phone, that's telepathic. When we talk about nanites, that's the cells in the body, because that's the DNA. So we look at everything that is part of this design, that is a biosuit, that is technology, that is organic, that is chemistry, that is quantum physics involved, and how we calculate things. Let's say if I want to shoot a ball, the calculations happen like in a split second. But a scientist or a physicist needs to write it out, and they go through all these calculations and say the velocity and whatever you need to shoot. And it's like, well, my brain, my internal design has already figured it out. I'm a quantum physicist, by nature. All of us are, because our brains, our bodies are designed with all of the tools on board for physics, for calculus, chemistry, alchemy, all the exchanges, the chemical exchanges, electrical exchanges that happen inside the body. All of that is by design. It's already happening. I don't have to think twice about running up the steps. If I see steps set a certain, length apart, I already know that I need to step a little higher, faster, or push, it's already there. But when we're in school as a teacher, we're teaching children, and that's a way to help children learn better, and saying, well, by design, you already know how to do this. Now let's put it on paper, and I can show you what's already happening divinely here. We're going to put it on paper, and we can show you there. So it's already there. So we know how to do everything. It's just we've been told that we don't. We've been told we don't have it, that we're not divine beings, that we're not special, that we are, we don't know how to calculate. We don't know how to do anything. Walking, running, jumping, laughing takes, science. Everything, that we're a part, that's part of our makeup. There's so many things that we should just start really breaking down and appreciating, and then telling them we have more control, and we cannot relinquish that power that we have simply because they're trying to take advantage of the fact that they think we don't know. There are a lot of us that know. And if you don't know, start asking questions. That's what I do. And then eventually I get a download. And because I'm constantly asking questions, that's actually what wisdom actually means. You know, in the Shemitic, wisdom is kakma, and it means to strongly question. So you think about when Christ, the disciples would ask him questions, his responses, he never answered them directly, because a guru never really does. A high ascended master never answers a question right away, because why? You haven't given it enough thought. Think, you know, you have to think intently. You have to put a lot of thought into, a lot of thought into it. A lot of people don't. They just ask a question, but they haven't critically analyzed information. They haven't really gone in, you know, and thought about something long enough, hard enough, and then they come up with a theory, then they ask the question. So that's what wisdom actually, you know, is. It's not what you've learned, is what you're asking, so that you can get the answer. So I think for us, we have to learn the art of thinking, the art of investigating, the art of researching, and the art of asking questions. Because most of us don't know how to ask the right question to get the answer that we're looking for. So we could start there. And that's what I do. I get a notebook and I just start writing out a whole bunch of questions. What is this? I wonder if that. Well, what is this? Well, where'd that come from? Who did that? Why would that be the case? You know, and I just go through, and before I know it, there are 2 pages. And then as I go on in life, I start checking things off in my mind, like, okay, I just asked that question. And then I got a download. Then I'll go read something somewhere and say, wow, it was there all along, but I got it intuitively because it was a download. So Hadassah is saying, be silent to hear from the sacred intelligence that is there. Yes, I've gone to that place in myself. I listened to Muji Baba, and he and also Sadhguru, and just to learn and understand meditation and how to hear from within, and going to that place where there are no thoughts. And a lot of people have a hard time getting there. I can get to a place where I don't have any thoughts going on, and I can get to, and I sense the presence of what they call the knowing, or the primal awareness, where it's the observer sitting, watching everything. Is it an active participant? Don't know. I just know it's watching, and I can feel the presence of the knowing, because you can become the knowing and do nothing but just know. So I've gotten to that point. Is it something that you can continuously do? It's hard to walk in it because you got so much coming at you. There are so many different, frequencies of information and sound and, busyness going on. And if you can tune out when you go, meditation is important. It really is. And so you can get to the point where you're hearing from within and there are no thoughts, but you're hearing. And that was in response to what Hadassah was saying about being quiet enough, long enough to actually hear from within and hear that spiritual intelligence, come through. It will happen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rochelle. And I really appreciate your coming on tonight and sharing your story. I know we talked a little earlier and you were kind of nervous about it. And, I think you've done an excellent job. You've presented very well. You have really sparked some really good conversation, as well as given us some food for thought as well. So I really do appreciate that. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
They can send me an email. I don't have like any social media pages because I kind of stay away from that, but I do have email. I'm at Global Recovery 369 at gmail.com. I can put it in the chat.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Okay, you're welcome. Oh, were you able to get those pictures?
Let me check and see. Okay. So for people who may be listening to this on Spotify or any of our other locations, if you could go ahead and speak your email again to people, that would be awesome.
Oh, sure. It's global recovery 369@gmail.com.
Beautiful. And those photos did come in, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Now I'm going to assume that this is the first image that you drew.
And I was sketching it out. Yes, as it came to me. It was handed to me by his name was what's his name? Ariel. That was the name he gave me. And he put that in my hand, and that circle in the middle was like blue. And so there's this crop circle.
Now, did you do any studies into the meaning of this particular crop circle?
I tried, but couldn't find anything. I was trying to find a subject matter expert on crop circles and what that one may have meant. And so the only thing that I could think of was that crop circles represent other beings that have been here and leaving their signature to say that they're into Earth, that they are, I would say, at least for them, that they are advocates for humanity. That, you know, when you see that, that shows that they are part of a council or a Galactic Earth Council or confederation. And you know how you leave something and say, okay, here's my insignia, and that shows that I'm with you. And that's just, I mean, to get it first in, you know, soul travel, and then they put it in my hand and then turn around and find it, that let me know that they are here to help us and they're not against us. And just to look for that. So when I saw that symbol and I found it on the earth, that let me know that, you know, they are watching over us. You know, to me, it just made all the sense in the world. It's like, why would
it was verification for you.
Exactly. I had never seen that before. I wasn't really following crop circles. I like the way they look, but as far as ever studying them, no. So to have that given to me as a symbol to say, remember me by this. And then I said, I have to find that somewhere. And the first impression was look for crop circles. I said, crop circles, okay, look for it. And there it was.
Nice. So as we begin to wind things down tonight, I was wondering, do you have any final thoughts or comments that you want to leave people with?
I would say when it's all said and done, you know, the late Dr. Star was left with a message for humanity to, you know, be part of the ascension, be part of the reintegration, and to reconnect with the star can. We are Earth can, but we also have roots, you know, in other galaxies, you know, from other places. You know, they are working on our behalf. We have to give permission. We have to know that they're benevolent. We have to trust. We have to start doing better, you know, amongst ourselves, and, you know, not let this level of division, whether it be race, color, creed, whatever it is, we have to start working together better. And the only way we're going to ascend is, you know, the ascension is happening and some are going to be left behind. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on. You know, the tides are changing. Pay attention to the masculine, feminine aspect, not just male, female, but there is an energy and there is a turning of the tides. This is the age. And so many people aren't prepared for it. And there you can see the mental breakdown that people are experiencing, you know, and a lot of men are going through that. So I would, you know, and even speaking to the men, tune into that so that the all can, you know, pour into you, men and women, of course, but especially men, so that they are part of this. And because they play an important role. And changing, we're coming out of Pisces, going into Aquarius, and that aggression and that darkness and all of that plays a part into our growth and development. We need to be more tuned in there too, as well. So I would say, continue to love, continue to support one another, be aware, continue to share so that all of us, you know, can experience this awakening. And for those it's for, and for those that are not ready yet, you just continue to move and keep them in your thoughts and, you know, in your heart. And, you know, be patient. And with all that being said, love and light.
Beautiful.
Glory in the light of the radiant one.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rochelle, and thank you again for being here. Carol has one final comment. So Carol.
Thanks, Sheila.
Mhm.
And I'm going to ask, after this, I'll ask about when, okay. Willow, sorry. All right. Yeah, one last comment is that everything you're speaking about, Rochelle, is in the knowledge book. This is a woman in Turkey. She's in touch with the spiritual beings and they dictated to her. And she's written a book called The Knowledge Book, right? So we're looking for one, absolutely, you know, to do it. They want us to go higher levels of consciousness, to join them, stop warring, stop destroying the planet, you know, stop playing around with nuclear weapons. You're like children with matches, you know, you could destroy not just our world, but it's also their world as well. You know, even going out into space. I heard just on the TV last night, they said they put to go to the probes, to go to Jupiter and Europa, where they think there's ice and there's creatures under the ice. They've done a nuclear device, and to get rid of it, they let it explode on Jupiter. A nuclear, you know, device, right? So we're not just our world, but it's other planets in our solar system. So yes, it's going to affect other beings there. Right, but this is all in the knowledge book. So I'm always, Sheila, I'm always telling people about, when you email me, I'm emailing everybody, telling you about Galactic Alliance, right? But I just want to put in a quick plug. If anybody in Toronto, we're looking for one more person just to help us out. We formed a council. We need one more for 3 to make the 3. And then we're going to study for 62 weeks. And then we're going to open it up next year. We're going to open it up to the public. Each one of us is going to have a group of 6 people to start, you know, to go on, you know, to continue on there, right? But
so Carol, if people want to join you, can you give your email so that they can reach out?
Okay, thank you, Sheila, because I know in other, you know, I know at other groups they say no, they just want it. You can't put a plug in, you know, they want you to, I understand they want you to be with their group, right? But thank you so much, Sheila, you're open-minded. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much, Carol.
Okay, my dear, thanks again, Sheila.
All right. And so again, I want to thank you, Rochelle, for being here tonight, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your story, and for having the courage to step out. And that's what, you know, Cosmic Conversations is about. I know we bring in a lot of top speakers and we love to hear them, but I also love to hear the voice of everybody, because everybody's truth matters. The experiences that you're having truly matter, and we're here to listen and to support you along your way. So if you have not signed up to be part of our audience, or you want to join us, you can go right here to the galacticalliance.org. I never can figure out which way to move. The galacticalliance.org. You can sign up to be on our mailing list. You can also go to the Conscious Awakening Network. All of our Cosmic Conversations are on YouTube. You can check them out there. You can go to the consciousawakeningnetwork.org. You can find Cosmic Conversations there, among many, many other excellent speakers. So Rochelle, I think you've done a beautiful job tonight, and I really appreciate all of the thought and all of the information that you've given to us. And so before we close out, I do want to thank everyone again for joining us, for watching us week after week. Know that I love you from the bottom of my heart, and I wish you well until we're back together again. And to take us on out, Susie's going to play us a final song. So take it away, Susie.
Thank you, honey. This was written by Daniel Namod in 2003, and it's to all of us, like our speaker tonight, Rochelle, that learned what religion wasn't. And we've come out of that and learned what love is. This is called Sacred Love. We are sacred love. Sacred love is all that we are. Oh, we are sacred love. Sacred love is all that we are. Show the way the way we want to live in this holy place, just a holy place. We are blessed peace, blessed peace is all that we are. Yes, we are blessed peace, blessed peace is all that we are. Oh, show the way, yes, show us the way we want to live in this state of grace. Lead the way, please, lead the way. We want to live forever in this holy place, such a holy place. Fade out. We are sacred love.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful week and hope to see you soon.
Okay,
Much
thank you.
love.
Good night.
Good night,